Hello, hi, I want to welcome everybody. I am Van Jones, and I am just thrilled beyond belief to be getting a chance to play a moderator role today. I'm not a moderate, but I'm happy to moderate. Um, and we are going to have. I thought we were going to have two or three, and then they said it was going to be four or five. Now it's nine speakers. Why would you have nine speakers? Why would you have some of the most important voices in America, some of the most important filmmakers, film stars, grassroots activists, medical doctors, because horrific catastrophe, a horrific catastrophe has befallen an American city, and not enough is being done about it in Flint, Michigan. So we're going to spend the next half hour, maybe a little bit longer, just getting you up to speed, you who are listening here. We want to give a big thanks, obviously, to NBPC. This is their YouTube channel. It's their Google Hangout. But this is hashtag Justice for Flint. I'm just going to say very quickly the names of some of the people who are on the call. I'm going to start asking questions of folks, and we're going to hear from a lot of voices. But in case you're wondering, we have Ryan Coogler on the call, Mr. Creed, Mr. Fruitvale Station, amazing filmmaker extraordinaire. Rhea Boyd is here. She's a medical doctor. She's a pediatrician, human rights advocate. We also have Carmen Perez, executive director for Gathering for Justice. Michael McBride is on the phone, director of the PICO network. Vien Trong is here. She's with Green for All. The wonderful, amazing actor Mark Ruffalo, who is a green hero, not just when he's the Incredible Hulk on the Avengers, but in real life. We got Rick Carter, executive director for Michigan Faith in Action, one of those beautiful frontline organizations. Also, Rashid Shabazz, who's the vice president of communications for the Campaign for Black Male Achievement. Here, because it's hard to have black male achievement or black female achievement when you have your children being poisoned with lead. And last but not least, the amazing Rashad Robinson, who is the executive director of Color of Change, which I believe is the biggest, strongest online justice organization in the world. And there may be a few more surprise folk drop in. So I just want to get started by asking some questions of Carmen, of Rick, and of Rashad, just to get a quick status update on where do things stand now. I know Michael McBride cannot stay on the whole time, so I'm going to get him in as well. But Carmen, you're the executive director of the Gathering for Justice. Give us an update. You got people all around the world tuning in, trying to figure out what is going on, what's happening in Flint.
Well, I just want to say thank you to everybody for having me on this call, and also, Rick Carter, who's actually one of the people from Flint Rising, is somebody who could explain it better than I can. But, Justice League is a criminal justice organization, and one of the things that we have never really tapped into is, understanding a water crisis. But our humanity didn't allow us to not do anything. Specifically, seeing what was being portrayed in the media, we wanted to learn firsthand what was happening on the ground. And so one of our Justice League members had actually put together a meeting for us to meet with people from a different community members from a coalition, Flint Rising, and that's where we met different people like Reverend McCathern. We got to meet Rick Carter. We got to meet other people, but what we saw is that the community is sick. There are babies with rashes. There are, it's not just about water. It's also about a community that is in dire need. And so we've been back here about 3 times. Tamika Mallory, myself, our Justice League family have been here to provide relief, but relief isn't enough. We're not doing enough. And we know that it's going to take political pressure, it's going to take public awareness, but what we are able to do is to bring our resources, our network, to actually come and see the faces of Flint. We had a town hall meeting where people from the community shared what was happening to them. This crisis has been going on since 1977. The water crisis has been contaminated. The water has been contaminated for 2 years, and Rick could explain a little bit more about that. But people are just finding out about a month ago. One of the young men, Kendrick, that we met, said he just found out a month ago, and it was because he was seeing tanks come into the community thinking that they were these police officers coming to take people away, but it was really people trying to get water to the community. And so for us to see that the community isn't even aware that their water is contaminated is criminal.
Yeah. Well, listen, first of all, I appreciate your witness and your work. Also, we've been joined by Ava DuVernay, the other filmmaker extraordinaire with Selma and so many other great projects. Because we only have half an hour, now we have 10 people. Everybody's going to have to be short. So you gave an example of how to be long. Rick going to have to give an example of how to be short. What's going on? Give us the update, brother. Rick, are you there? Okay, I'm gonna skip and let Rashad jump in. Rashad, break it down for us. What's the state of action from your point of view?
Thank you, Van, and it's great to be on. A couple of quick things that we're looking at and that folks can do. You know, I have staff on the ground right now working with a wide range of organizations locally. We've crafted a number of sets of demands in terms of what we need to do to strengthen regulation, quite frankly, that has been chipped away by the right over the last several years. And so we're doing a lot of work right now to strengthen HUD's hand, to strengthen the hand of the EPA and others. We have a long road to build back some of the regulations that have been pushed aside, so that we're not just, so we're uplifting these stories of Flint. We're dealing specifically with bringing campaigns that push for more relief and supporting organizations on the ground, but we're also looking at all the other areas around the country that could be the next Flint, because we recognize that this is a problem that we need to solve both locally, but think about the national work that we need to do in the, coming down the road. So people can go to
Rashad, how do people get connected with colorofchange.org? Real quick, and I'm going to move on. But how do people?
People could go to colorofchange.org, and right there they'll be able to find the campaigns that we're currently running. They can also join us through their smartphone by texting the word color to 225568, the word color to 225568, and get updated not just on the work that we're doing in Flint, but around the country, but specifically ways they can get involved down the road.
Thank you for your great work, brother. We're going to loop back to Rick once we get that sorted out. But let me go ahead and I want to bring Mark Ruffalo and Ryan Coogler into the conversation. You know, Blackout is doing a big concert tomorrow. Next week, Mark Ruffalo and Green for All and Vienne are going to be doing a big bus tour. Mark and Ryan, I'll let Mark go first. I know he has to leave early. Mark, why should artists care about this?
Well, this is us. I mean, and we have a voice that actually can carry the world in ways that media, other kinds of media, news media, print media, just can't do. And this is as much a cultural issue as it is a political issue or a human rights issue, and we have a lot of power, and we don't exercise it. We're afraid to exercise it, and what we're seeing now is a kind of lifting up of that voice.
Hey, Mark, as an artist, have you had any victories on something like this?
Yes, we had a victory in New York State where they were doing hydrofracking. We were in Pennsylvania. We saw where it was destroying drinking water for poor communities. And we band together against it. We used culture, we used organizing, and we basically stopped. We banned hydrofracking in New York State. And I work with Water Defense, and we've been going all over the country. What you're seeing here in Flint is the canary in the coal mine. This is happening all over the nation right now. And it's not only a racial issue, but it's a class issue as well. There are certain people that would like to divide this as a class issue to keep the working, really it's the middle class and working poor in America, as well as the racial side of it. There's a whole other class side of it that's happening, and what we're seeing sacrifice zones. We're literally seeing entire communities that are being sacrificed for the almighty dollar. And in the richest country in the world, what we're seeing, and why I think politically where the world is today, where the mood of America is today, is because we've lost our organizations, the people who are supposed to be taking care of us. They've lost credibility. They don't give a damn about us.
Well, one of the things that one of the two of the great artists that have been trying to document sacrifice zones and zones of hope are both Ryan and Ava. Ryan, are you still with us? Good, brother. Obviously, there you are. Good. Obviously, you've done such a great job of shining a light on Oakland and every place else. Why do you care so much, and what do you think artists can and should be doing? And Ava, I'm gonna come to you next.
A lot of people's attention. You know what I mean? A lot of people want to hear how we think. You know what motivates us. And it's an opportunity, like Mark said, that in this day and age of social media and technology, that's able to. I'm talking to you right now from a device. You know what I'm saying? That can fit into my pocket. You know what I mean? In this day and age, this technology, where people can be reached out to through social media, the way stories can be told, people can connect like this. We have to take advantage of it as artists. And this issue. It's a human rights issue more than anything, but it's also one that's close to home for me. I'm from Oakland, California, but my parents couldn't afford to buy a house there. We moved to Richmond, California, which is a community that's right next to one of the largest Chevron plants in the country, the largest on the West Coast. And every once in a while, it blows up and spews toxins, and all of a sudden, we're looking around for help. They want to shoot us a little bit of money. You know what I'm saying? But people's children are being born with asthma and all types of different health-related issues. And for me, one thing that I wanted to do was actually come to Flint and actually talk to the people. We were fortunate enough to we've been here for about 24 hours. We met these two beautiful sisters who are Flint residents. And we want to just humanize the issue. You know what I mean? So it's not just us coming in and talking. We're giving them a chance to be seen, to be heard from, and to hear a little bit of that, hear a little bit of that.
Let's take a moment and hear from you. Obviously, the heart and the soul of this is not people like us who care. It's people like you who are living there and fighting for your lives. Just maybe say a few words and enlighten us on what's going on. And give us your name.
My name is Darlene Turner, and this is Diamond Turner. This is my daughter, and I literally grew up in Flint, and it's a disaster. And there's so many people are really suffering. And what bothers me the most is that our voices are not heard. This has been going on for a while. 2014 is when we started complaining about this water. And now we're finally being heard. But my concern is what next? What are the implications that this water is having on everyone that's unknown right now to us? And so I'm looking further in the future to the what next and making sure that those pipes that needs to be fixed immediately, not 2 years from now, 3 years from now, but immediately, because this giving water, I appreciate that. It's great. It's a great resource, but it's only temporary. That's so right. We really need something that's permanent. And these children are going to need a what next, and that's what we're working on now. That what next.
Well, I tell you what, you teed up the next set of speakers very well, because we have some what's next activists on the call. Before we get into that, because I know when you talk about having Pico on the call, there's a what's next. When you have a Green for All on the call, there's a what's next. Before we get to that, I want to make sure to hear from Ava in terms of how you see this. Why does this impact you, and how do you imagine that someone with your platform and your vision might be able to support what's happening?
Well, hi everyone, and thanks, man. Even more than my personal connection to it, which is one that's just very steeped in being interested in folks having basic human needs. I mean, water is pretty important. The fact that we've been talking about it in this context is a little ridiculous, and more than that, I'm interested in making sure that people at home understand how they can be involved with this. Tomorrow, we've asked a bunch of our friends of Blackout for Human Rights, to come and stand with us and in amplifying the voices of the people of Flint. So basically, this is designed to be performances by our friends who are giving their time, who are giving their talent to uplift the community, to give a moment of kind of enjoyment, of togetherness in the midst of this chaos and trauma, but then also to give them voice, or to help amplify their voices for whatever reasons that we all are aware of. We get the spotlight, we get the platform, and so we're just sharing that spotlight and that platform with the folks that really deserve it right now. And so in between each of the performances, there'll be people like the sister who just spoke, speaking and talking directly about what does justice for Flint look like. We can't come in and assign that from the outside. We have to listen to the people there. So that what this is constructed to be, people will be able to go on to revolt.tv, watch the show, watch the live stream, have some fun with Janelle and Dej and everyone else, but then also hear these voices. And then we ask you to please text a donation if you feel so inclined, using 83224, texting the word justice to 83224. All of the funds are going to be going directly to Flint activists and Flint charities and efforts for the Flint recovery on the ground. And like the sister said, it's more than water bottles, even though what we've been hearing, that's appreciated. This goes much deeper into, how do you wash clothes with a water bottle? You know what I mean? How are you bathing with those things? But even more so, the trauma of knowing that your elected officials at the state level have ignored you and put you in this position. So there's a lot to do, and shed a light on all of that.
Okay, and if people want a little bit more information about the event, where should they go? Just one more time, Ava. Hello. Oh.
Hi there. Can you hear me? Yes, I'm here. Revolt.tv would probably be the best place, because that's where you'll be able to see the live stream. If you're on Twitter, the account to follow is United Blackout.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. Well, if you just joining, Carmen Perez really lit it up. She got us off on a very strong footing, because like many people, we were not from Flint. Our hearts are in Flint. Carmen actually has gone there. She's actually put her body where her mouth is, and it's part of the reason she's such a respected and esteemed leader. I think she painted a strong picture. We've also heard from folks who actually live there. We've heard from artists who care. Carmen, we probably have to bring you back in a second, but before we do, I would like to hear from Pico, and I'd like to hear from Green for All in terms of what are the next steps. McBride, can you speak for Pico?
Sure, sure, and it's worth noting that we actually have a chapter on the ground. That's where Rick Carter, who is part of the coalition Flint Rising, has been there in Flint for some 20 years. And Pico, as we launched our Live Free campaign back in 2010-11, was actually started by and with the support of folks in Flint and Detroit. We were there in 2011, but Governor Snyder started to put these emergency managers in place. And he subverted democracy. He effectively unilaterally negated the decision-making and powers of locally elected officials. And it should be a cause of great concern for everyone. Many of us were talking about this back then. They turned a deaf ear. And now some 4 or 5 years later, we see the tragedy happening. Human rights abuses, civil rights abuses happening. And it seems to continue to happen primarily in communities where Black, Brown, Indigenous, and poor working folks are living. It's a more outrage. So part of the organizing efforts moving forward from the Flint Rising groups and others, on March 6th, they are already bringing together thousands of folks. Doors have been knocked on to call for justice. We just don't want charity for Flint. We want justice for Flint. We want.
What's going to happen on March 6th, though? Break it down. What's going to happen on March 6th?
March 6th, there's going to be a large rally happening in Flint.
How do people get information about the rally, brother?
They should go to Michigan Faith in Action, and they can also go to our piconetwork.org website, and you'll see all the information there happening. They already have some demands that the last 2 years they've been paying water bills. They should be reimbursed for all those water bills. They shouldn't keep paying for services that are already contaminated. They're also asking for each home to be tested freely, and they're also asking, as the sister said, for all their pipes to be replaced throughout the whole city. So those are some direct demands that are coming up through the Flint Rising groups, and we're going to continue to be there in support for sure. It's a moral outrage, and the faith community is on board for sure.
Thank you, Brother McBride. And we know how busy you are. You look like you on the road right now, probably going to fight another fight. So if you have to drop off, we appreciate you. And,
Right on.
and being from California, I really appreciate you.
Yeah, we'll be there. Peace.
Okay. Um, and I think we have Vien Trong from Green for All. Obviously, Vien, one of the great environmental leaders in the country, responsible for so much good stuff in California, now across the country. How do you see it, and what are some of these next steps?
Well, first, thank you for having me here. For me, this is a really personal issue. I grew up in Oakland. I grew up in the Fruitvale in Oakland, a few blocks from Fruitvale Bar Station. Youngest of 11 kids, parents who worked in sweatshops for 15 years, and I've dedicated my whole life trying to figure out what are some solutions to poverty and pollution. And what I know from this career is seeing that what's happening in Flint is a systematic and institutionalized racism. And what we have to do is to make sure that we're following the lead of people who live in Flint, making sure that they're guiding the planning, guiding the funding, guiding the future of Flint, and that the rest of us nationally are here to support that effort. What's happened in Flint is the worst we can possibly imagine. Babies are hurt, people have died, and the long-term implications of that is going to be undetermined. And for all of us, what we now need to do is to make sure they get the very best that the country has to offer. And resources and funding and expertise and policy and politics, all of us should just stand by and say, what do you need? What can we do and how can we help? That this has been happening since 2014 and that we're now finally hearing about it is a disaster and a tragedy, and we have to fix that. So the tour that we're going to be doing next week is about how do we bring the cameras, the support, anything that we can lend, and really stand by and ask, how can we be useful to the people in Flint to guide the future of it?
So I know Green for All is working with Mark Ruffalo on this thing. How do people support Green for All? How do people stay informed?
Yeah, so greenforall.org. Go to our website, check us out. Let us know if you're interested. Let us know if you want to be part of the tour or being part of the stop to help educate the people who are going to be there with cameras and media about what's really happening. The leader who is representing Flint here with Ryan, what we should do and what we should make sure we do is give her the mic and just clear space and hold space for her and for leaders of Flint to tell us what is the priority, what is the need, and how can we make sure that we're building into that process the ability for them to guide where the funding should go, where the jobs should go, who should have the contracts, what should emergency management look like, and what should the EPA do? What should the White House's reaction be? And then we just hold that space for them to guide us.
Mm-hmm. Good. Very, very, very helpful. Well, you mentioned babies being hurt. I wonder if Dr. Boyd might be willing to jump in right now. Obviously, Rhea Boyd, medical doctor, human rights advocate, justice fighter extraordinaire. Could you maybe give us a sense of the medical dimension of this crisis and what you think we should be looking out for and supporting folks in Flint to fight for?
Yes. Thank you first for having me on this call. I'd say, so I'm a pediatrician, and so I particularly know about issues that affect children. What is particularly concerning about the contamination of the water in Flint is that pregnant women and infants and children are at greatest risk from lead exposure, particularly through water contamination, because children are smaller, and so they absorb more lead per body weight. And then there's been a lot of talk about how vulnerable communities are particularly at risk, and health-wise, that's the case as well. So if you have a community where you don't have access to the foods that mitigate lead exposure, like foods high in calcium, iron, or vitamin C, so fresh fruits and vegetables, for example, then you don't have access to the foods that mitigate your exposure. If you can't afford to purchase alternate water sources, then you are disproportionately exposed to tap water. So it's no surprise, and as many people have said, this is something we see across the country where low-income communities of color are kind of disproportionately affected by issues like this. And so for kids, what we're really worried about is how lead affects behavior and cognition or intelligence. So while not every child will be affected, we're concerned about whether or not these kids will be able to reach their full educational potential, which then affects their earning potential, which then affects how they can provide for their future generations. I mean, there are even studies of lead exposure for pregnant women that show that the grandchildren of the in utero baby still have signs of lead exposure. So what we're talking about is not just giving water to people. We are talking about lifelong wraparound services that prioritize the needs of low-income communities who are disproportionately affected. That includes educational supports, behavioral supports, and access to healthy food, and early childhood interventions, preschool, for everyone in the area. So thank you for having me. I'm hoping with the support of these groups, this issue can gain some more visibility, and we can think about it for other populations because, like Mark said earlier, this is an issue that affects, unfortunately, communities across the country.
And how can people support you and support your work? What can we do to just to back you up? Because you're taking on a lot in terms of just your thought leadership, your expertise.
So what I would say, I'm based in California, and I'm on our American Academy of Pediatrics, which is our professional organization's board for our area. As we know, pediatricians were the ones who kind of shined a light on this issue and have led the way in researching how this affects kids and future generations. For families who are concerned that they could have been affected, I would say go see your doctor. If that's a pediatrician, a nurse practitioner, a family medicine doctor, go see someone and get tested. But also know that that lead test only shows lead in your blood for the last month, for 20 to 30 days. And so even if your test is normal, if you have concerns about prior exposures to lead and how your kids are behaving in school, because often this shows up in school performance, check in with your doctor. Regular check-ins can check the development of your child and make sure there's not any delays. And as soon as we see delays, we want to take preventative steps to prevent worsening. So I would say anybody who's interested in learning more can go to the AAP's website, aap.org, and learn more about ways to protect your kids from lead exposures.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And I think it's also good to hear that there's medicine in good food. That these are not it's something it's impossible to deal with. That this whole idea of getting clean water and getting good fresh food can be a part of our demands. I haven't heard that so much before.
Hey, Van.
Yes.
Hey, just to speak to that, bro, like just being out here in Flint the last day or so, something that came up with the community is that it's no grocery stores in Flint.
Right.
The grocery stores closed in the last
90 days. They closed down 3 major grocery stores in Flint. So major grocery stores in Flint anymore.
When did that happen?
Last year. Last year, they closed down 3 major ones in all areas. Well, the east side and the north side of Flint, they closed them down.
Yeah, the east side and north side, what we've seen is where all the black folks are, the black and brown folks are.
Gotcha. So they're taking out the good food and they're bringing in the bad water, and that's a double whammy.
Yeah.
So look, I see we're coming up on time. One of my great heroes, Rashid Shabazz, has not been heard from yet. We have to hear from Rashid, and so I would love just to hear how you guys are approaching this, what you think is our important next steps. Campaign for Black Male Achievement has become one of the most important voices, looking at the positive assets that the African American community has, especially African American men. What are you seeing? I see you there on the ground as usual. Talk to us, brother.
Well, thank you for having us, Van, and thank you for the National Black Program Consortium for hosting this. You said it best. If our communities are being poisoned, how are we going to achieve? How are we going to thrive? And I think the reason we've done this and why we're doing Justice for Flint is to bring both some hope, bring some inspiration, bring some solidarity to the ground. But the issues that we're talking about, I think Mark Ruffalo said it best. These are issues that are about power. These are issues about money. These are issues about communities that are being disenfranchised for a long time. And the work of the Campaign for Black Male Achievement, our commitment has always been to catalyze individuals, to be a support to individuals, leaders on the ground committed to Black men and boys. But our focus has always been community. It's about Black women and girls. It's about broader networks. And when we see the things happening right now in Flint, Mark was right. This is just a canary in the mine. And that we need to be mindful that, as Rashad said, there are other Flints on the potential. There are other issues out there. And when we look at these issues affecting community, we look at the issues affecting all of us, we need to see that there are some real sinister things happening. And we need to organize around it as community. And that when we say power to the people, we really mean power back to the people, that people need to organize and come together and be as one. When we look at what happened with the drug policies over the last 30 years, we saw that the canary in the minefield was Black men and women. And now we start seeing heroin become an issue, and now it's white individuals. And when are we guys stop putting people into office that are not for our best interests? So for us as a campaign, we are here at Flint. We've been working in Detroit for a long time in partnership with Skillman Foundation, committed to these issues. But this is really about the community here at Flint. And we're here because Justice for Flint, and to bring, as Ava said, these entertainers, the voices that they have, the community that we have. We did an amazing job with MLK Now. And with that potential and that catalyst and that drive, we just wanted to build off that momentum. We did not want to stop because we know that this is a moment that we're in. When we see Black Lives Matter, we see people organizing. We don't see those things disconnected. We see it as a whole. And so we're here on the ground with the folks on Flint because we love them. And I think that's the last thing that we haven't talked about, is that the humanizing aspect of this, we need to start with love. We need to start coming with the sense that we're committed to this because we love our communities, we love ourselves, and we love all people. And yes, Black Lives Matter. So we're committed to this because we're here at Flint, and to see that these individuals have not had grocery stores for 90 days, it's just, we shouldn't even be talking about the demands that
crazy.
I talked about.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and the fact that nobody knows it, like in you know, every day something on here. I mean, these people are brilliant. Like this young sister here is from Flint, goes to University of Michigan at Flint. You know, she's starting acting programs for the children out here. But she said the first thing that got cut in the city was the arts programs once the city got broke. And then one thing I'm realizing, just going from these disenfranchised communities, man, like it's a phrase that folks say that's the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. What I'm realizing is that not only do the poor get poorer, but the poor get systematically attacked by the people who are supposed to protect them. And so often they pay financially for those attacks. You know what I mean? Like where I'm from, we pay the police just like everybody else. Pay for water. These people in Flint paying the most egregious, most expensive prices for water, and that water is poison in there. You know what I mean? So and they vote to put people in office, and these people in office make moves that not only don't protect them but attack them and damage them and damage their children. So I mean this idea has to stop.
Well, listen. Well, look, I just saw you talking about people on the ground level. Rick just got back in. Rick, we only have a few more minutes, but I'm so glad you're able to call back in. Carmen, you're going to get the last word. You started it. Carmen, you're going to have to finish it. So get ready because we want to know how we can back you up and how we can support you. You've always been, I mean, your whole life. I think you came out of in diapers fighting. So we know we got to back you up. But Rick, let's hear from you. And sorry about the trouble getting your voice into this conversation. You there, Rick? Rick is the executive director of Michigan Faith in Action. He's one of the key leaders, and it's a tragedy that we're not going to hear from him. But everybody who's on this call and under the sound of my voice can testify to the incredible work that's being done, that's being led, and obviously, the faith community is going to have to really be enlisted in a completely different way. Carmen, give us a few words just of how we can support you and back you up, and then we're going to try and do a little bit of Q&A, just maybe 5 minutes of Q&A. I may have to turn it over to Rashad to handle it if I have to go, but how can we back you up, Carmen?
So we put together an online registry, bit.do/4Flint, because when we met with the residents, there were other things than just water that folks needed. Also, people could find out more information on our website, gatheringforjustice.org. But I did want to bring up the voice of the Latino community who hasn't necessarily had the same access to water. We know that oftentimes the undocumented individuals don't have ID cards, and so they were requesting IDs for people to have access to water. And so I also want to say the Latino community is sprinkled around Flint. North Flint is mainly African American, and so there's also poor folks that are suffering from this injustice. But I wanted to also illustrate from a criminal justice perspective, we are seeing the true example of what the cradle to prison pipeline is, with these children not having access. And I believe it's like 6-year-old and under, they have irreversible effects for lead, and a lot of these young people are having a lot of different issues, behavioral issues, mental health issues, and so we're going to see a whole different conversation happening, one that has already began in Flint, where I believe the pastor, Father McCatherine, shared with us that they're already talking about creating more probation services for the city. So just so that people know, not only are we talking about the criminalization of Black and poor brown people, we're also looking at the lack of access that some of these populations have trouble getting. So.
And just say one more time how we can back you up. How do people connect with you and stay connected with you?
Go to our website, gatheringforjustice.org, gatheringforjustice.org.
Good.
Thank you.
Well, look, I think that's a very important perspective in terms of the Latino as well as the African American perspective. This whole food justice element is something I don't think has been lifted up properly. Understanding that it's, for basic food, but also there's medicine in some foods for these children, and that needs to be something that's lifted up. Rashid is brother. I'm going to ask you if you would be so kind to lead the rest of the call when it comes to the Q&A. I hate to put you on the spot, Rashid, but you've had worse things happen on worse days. So I unfortunately being called back over to the studio. We're doing this coverage for South Carolina, but I just want to say I am so blessed. I know so many people on this call, and those I don't know, I know your work. This is the kind of generation-defining tragedy. Katrina. Rodney King. There's certain things that happen to a community and to a people that who you are as a people is defined by how you respond. Who you are as a country is defined by how you respond. And you are now finally seeing a world-class response to a world-class tragedy. This is one effort. There are so many grassroots people. We should continue to lift up the voice of the grassroots people. But hopefully by being connected to the people who have given you those websites, this is also going to be recorded. If you missed a website, you can go back and replay it. But please spread the word about this fight. This is a desperate fight, and I appreciate having the opportunity to be a part of it. All the best. I'm going to hand this over to Rashid. Appreciate everybody.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
man. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you. So
thank you.
Thank you, man. Love you, man.
Appreciate it,
what
brother.
I'd like to do is before we switch to the Q&A, it's just briefly, if I could turn it back to Ava, can you just again remind us about what's happening tomorrow for Justice for Flint, where people can actually go, and then what I want to do is turn to the Q&A. But before I do that, I would like to hear again from Mark before he has to leave, and also from Rashad. So Ava, can you give us where we are for tomorrow? What is Justice for Flint? And just give us another overview of where people can go.
Absolutely. So this afternoon, folks have heard some of the kind of foundational concepts behind what we're doing. There's so much more to learn. It's really about educating ourselves and listening to the people of Flint. The people of Flint are center stage. Consider the performances that are coming into Flint that Black Out for Human Rights is bringing in as kind of the introductions to the people who will be speaking. We've called upon our friends to come out and perform and provide a space where the people of Flint can be heard, where the spotlight can be put on them. And so that happens tomorrow at Whiting Auditorium. That space is already at capacity, free to the people of Flint, so that's all done. Hopefully it'll be a wonderful evening for them, and everyone else can watch on the live stream. We'll be taking over the homepage of revolt.tv tomorrow, starting at 5 p.m. Eastern. Revolt.tv, you can watch the whole evening. We'll be going from about 5 to 10. Again, performances and conversation, listening to the people of Flint, as well as enjoying some performance by some of the boldest artists that we could find to bring in. While that's happening, we asked you to text in and give what you can, $1, $5. Charges apply, but basically all of the donations will go towards a consortium of Flint recovery efforts. All of the money that we bring in, we're working to make sure that that goes directly toward the Flint recovery. We've raised money through a bunch of other organizations, private individuals, to put on the show itself, so you can be assured that the money that you give will go directly to the effort at hand. And that number, you can text the word justice to 83224. Again, justice to 83224. Please tweet that out. Please share that with people. Justice to the word 83224. Text it to your phone book, and watch the show on revolt.tv tomorrow.
All right, thank you, Ava. Mark, before you leave, we wanted to get you back in really quickly. Can you just talk a little bit more about the role that you see this happening? One of the things that I think is the most powerful thing is that with Carmen, with you, that we're really showing that there's a diversity around this issue, and that we appreciate you being on with us today. Can you talk a little bit more about what you think we need to be doing before you have to leave and go receive your award tonight?
Yeah, so I've been doing this work in other communities too, fracked communities, other communities who've lost their water as well in the United States, and as an entertainer, there's kind of a good way to do this, and a way that you keep yourself out of trouble, and that is to bring the spotlight to you, and then put the people on the front lines in the spotlight, to make the space for you people, the people who are suffering, the people who are fighting for their lives, to be heard in the world. And that's, I think, the best way for an entertainer or someone in my business to be the most supportive. And it keeps you out of trouble, and it also makes you safe from any kind of criticism. I know that a lot of actors, entertainers are afraid to step out into the world because there's some forces out there that want to see us really fail. They want to hurt us. They want to quiet our voices because they know that we can reach the world. And the way you do that is by taking the spotlight off of yourself and giving it to the people who are fighting for their lives. And I want to also say to my brothers and sister entertainment or cultural people is that when you go to these places, the amount of love that you get to participate in is so inspiring and awakening and refreshing, and reminds you of why you began this journey as an artist. And so that's what I want to give, and I'll be there next week to support. I love you guys, man. I love what you're doing.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
You're the best of the best of the best. Bye.
Joining us. I want to switch to Rashad to kind of lead us as we begin to wrap up. One of the Q&As that we've talked about is a lot of people are asking how they can get engaged. We also are talking about the issue of humanizing us as a people, and that's the work that you have led so strongly, the work that we partnered with you at the Campaign for Black Male Achievement on. Can you talk a little bit, one, how can people get engaged? I know there's going to be some direct actions that can be taken that you all have led and can be part of. Can you talk a little bit about that, and also talk about how do we turn this into how do we move from this being an issue where it's so distant between those who see us as a community, a Black community? How do we get people, or Latino community, how do we get people to empathize around this issue? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Rashid, and thanks for all of your work. It's such a pleasure to be here with all of you thinking about this. We've launched a couple of different asks and sort of collaboration and conversation with folks on the ground to sort of get people who are paying attention right now to actually start building energy online at direct action. We talk a lot at Color of Change about the difference between being present and being powerful. And so often what happens in these moments is people see what's happening, they share articles, they tweet about it, but then we don't actually build the power to fundamentally change the things that happen, the written and the unwritten rules that say whose lives matter. And so we've actually started to build the momentum at the state level and at the national level to start forcing a set of reforms. Organizations that Color of Change has been battling with, from the organizations like the American Legislative Exchange Council to a whole host of organizations which pass these laws at the state and national level, will continue to come back and bite us all around the country. So for us, we've got to do all the work we can at the local level to build energy for Flint and for the people at Flint and make sure people's stories are front and center. But we've got to build momentum and power all around the country, because we're going to continue to see these issues happen. And to the extent around how we continue to tell this story, we've been doing a lot of pushback, both behind the scenes with news media and news outlets and how they're covering this story, who they're talking to, making sure they're uplifting the stories of the most vulnerable, making sure that they're avoiding the kind of political narratives that could sometimes drown out real people's stories, and don't allow us to actually do the work of bringing more voices to the table, people who are not affected. And I want to really thank Mark in particular. We were in conversations with him from very early on about partnership, and our organization partnered in sort of pushing out material on some of the testing. But his willingness to step into these conversations along with everyone else as allies. And so, I always thank and appreciate allies who are stepping in different ways, and not only see themselves as allies, but see themselves as part of the movement. So we're working to give more and more allies things to do. We're also working with the larger progressive, sort of the folks on the ground have been wonderful, and we want to make sure national organizations who are engaging, especially national organizations who are not indigenous to these communities, that they're thinking through what the right asks are, that they're listening to the community, that they're following the community. And so we're doing a lot of work there at translating for folks outside of this how to engage, because unfortunately for us, we continue to have to engage all around the country when these moments come up, when these tragedies and disasters come up. And so we're doing all of that. People can go to colorofchange.org. They should also, the first thing they should do is follow those links that Ava put out in terms of both donating, watching the programming, hearing the people on the ground, all the things that we need to be doing to uplift the stories. And then we also need to build long-term power, because we've got a lot of work to do to not just be on the back end of these things when they happen, but build the type of power that forces change so we're not dealing with this in the first place.
All right, thank you so much, Rashad. So some of the questions that we see streaming in are kind of, you've touched on them. But before we turn to, I think we'll wrap up with the activists, because a lot of the questions are about how people can get involved. And now I'll turn back to Carmen and Finn. But I want to start with Dr. Boyd. If you can just talk a little bit about one of the things that folks are asking is, if this is the damage that you talked about in terms of the generations affected by lead poisoning, can you talk a little bit more about how we can care for ourselves? How do we take care of ourselves in the immediate, in terms of both being tested, but what are things that they can do? What can community members do to address this issue in their own particular ways? What recommendations, or where would you guide us in that process? That was a question.
That's a great question. So first, I will say, not all kids will be affected, and that's a really important point. So I know issues like this create a lot of fear that your child is going to be the one who has symptoms, and the good news is that won't be the case for everybody, but like Dr. Mona has said, we can't really wait to see which kids will be affected and which won't. And so for all parents who are concerned, things you can start doing at home now are talking to your kids. Kids' brains respond wonderfully to engagement with parents. So talk to them, sing to them, read them stories. That's how they learn language. That's how they get smarter. It's how their brain grows. The other things you can do is to see your doctor regularly. Part of the visits that we encourage families to have with pediatricians are to check developmental growth. And so we're checking to make sure that kids are meeting their milestones. And if you are concerned your kid may have missed a milestone or are not doing the things that they should be doing for their age, or the same thing that their other friends that are their same age are doing, check in with your pediatrician about that, and they can double check that. And the other thing is nutrition, like we talked about. So for pregnant women and for kids, there are things that can mitigate exposure to lead. For pregnant women, if you drink tap water that's contaminated with lead on an empty stomach, you absorb more. And so you need to eat regularly, you need to eat well, and you need to drink only bottled water if you live in areas where your water is contaminated. For infants, their formula should be prepared with bottled water. Do not use the tap water, and don't use water with electrolytes in it. I know some people are offering free bottles of like vitamin water or Gatorade. Because babies' bodies can be very sensitive to electrolyte changes, it has to be regular water, but we want to use bottled water. And then for other kids, it's foods high in vitamin C, iron, and calcium, which will decrease their risks of exposure. And then check in with your schools. Schools, part of what we want the response from local government to be is to provide more services, to make sure the kids are getting looked after well at school, that people are succeeding, they're achieving, they're passing their grades on time. And for kids that you worry about aren't meeting those milestones, checking in with your school too to make sure you can get any additional support you can.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Boyd. So as we begin to wrap up, we're going to turn, first I want to hear from Finn from Green for All. If you can just talk about your final thoughts, what we need to be focused on at this moment as we wrap up, and your hopes for justice for Flint.
Yeah, I think what we're hoping is to make sure we're creating the time for people in Flint to really define what the future looks like. What we're seeing in places like Katrina, after New Orleans, Katrina hit, after Sandy and Haiyan in Philippines, oftentimes this emergency creates this chaos and a rush to make decisions that are actually not in the interest of people in Flint. And then you bring in big corporations to take all the jobs, you bring in people who are not from the community, who defines the policy and the politics in the future, which does not reflect the needs of the community. And that's the worry and scare that we would have. And so our role as a national organization and as leaders is to create the space and the safeguards to say no decision about the future of Flint should be made without the people of Flint. No decision on the funding and the future of Flint should be made without a community process on what the priorities look like. And all of the jobs, all of the things from replacing the pipes to the nurses' aid to the education and the organizing that is needed should be done with a focus on how do we make sure that these jobs go to the people of Flint? How can we make sure that these companies that are getting these jobs go to the minority and ethnic businesses from Flint? And how do we make sure that this emergency situation is actually rebuilding and strengthening the community of Flint and not taking it down, not actually undermining the power of Flint, right? So our concern is to make sure that not only are we returning to Flint safe, clean drinking water, that's important, that's crucial, but how do we actually use this to build the long-term economic and environmental sustainability of Flint?
Thank you. Carmen, we're going to turn to you to give some final thoughts, and then I'm going to wrap it up and ask Ryan for his final thoughts. And I want actually to leave the comments for the last comments to the community members who are here with us to tell us how they feel about this event and what they want to see happen at the end of the day. So, Carmen, can you give us your final thoughts as we wrap up and your hopes for justice for Flint?
Certainly. I think an important thing is to bring and continue to collaborate in bringing public awareness to what's happening in Flint and really honoring the people that are there with you right now, because the voices of the community are the most important. They are the experts in this space. But also, too, I want to encourage us to think about long-term sustainability, but also thinking about what can we do in the immediate. The immediate, people need water buffaloes, right? They need things like portable showers. We also need to build capacity within the community to actually, create a space where these activists and the community members are supported to actually continue to tell their story and to actually continue to do the work. Because what I have seen is people are sick, people are tired, and I know for us at Justice League, we're going to continue to support everybody in Flint. We're going to continue to come back. We're going to be here for about another week and a half. We're going to continue to go out into the community and to record the stories of the people and share them on social media and share them with our partners so that the story of the people of Flint gets out.
Thank you. Can you give us your website one more time?
Yes, it's gatheringforjustice.org, and people could follow us on social media at NY Justice League.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Vin, can you also give us your website as well?
Yes. Hi, it's www.greenforall.org. And if you sign in, we'll send you information about the work that we're doing moving forward and how you can support the efforts in Flint.
All right, thank you so much. So I'm gonna turn it to Ryan. When I first talked to this brother, he came to me with an idea about blackout for human rights. It was still in fruition, and we were talking about the project, and I could just tell how much he loved the community, how much he loved the work he was doing, and that love was why I joined Blackout. And so, Ron, I want to turn to you and just ask you, the Campaign for Black Male Achievement has been a supporter of this from the beginning. I've been a member of Blackout. But why is this important for you, and why are you doing this? Why are you doing this work? You went from MLK Now to this. People want to know, like, why are you engaging in this, and what can they do to stay engaged for long term?
Wow, that's a deep question. I think for me, I think I just realized that when you identify with a certain group of people, and you might be experiencing personal success. You know what I mean? Like we started Blackout when I was experiencing a level of success in my field, but I still wasn't happy though. You know what I'm saying? Even though I should have been. And you realize that that as a human being, you can never truly be happy when you know that people who are close to you or people who you identify with are still suffering. You know what I mean? And whatever young person I see on a videotape being brutalized by the police, young men, young women, no matter the color, you know what I mean? I obviously sympathize with them because I've been in those situations. You know what I mean? I identify with those types of situations. When I see communities having all of their control and autonomy to protect their youth, to protect the people who are most important to them, to protect their innocence, when I see that stripped away from them, I relate to that. I know what that feels like. You know what I mean? And I think if you seeing your fellow man as a human being, you can never truly be happy when so many of them are suffering or without power. So in our spare time, everybody in Blackout got another job. You know what I'm saying? But Dan over here, you can't see Zindy. Over here, you can't say they have day jobs. We got day jobs. My day job is making movies. You know what I'm saying? Same as Ava, Rashid's day job is working. You know what I mean? With Campaign for Black Male Achievement. But we donate that spare time that we have towards these causes, man. And to tell you the truth, I haven't ever been happier than I have been. Dealing with these events and meeting folks and experiencing different communities. And every time you go out and do it, you see so much of yourself and the people. You know what I mean? That energizes you to keep it going. But and the best thing about the network is it's not mine. Like, it didn't start with me. It started with all of us. You know what I mean? And it just continues to grow and get bigger and bigger. That's the most I can say about it before we turn it over to these sisters.
All right, thank you so much. So before we wrap up, I want to thank Ryan. I want to thank the Campaign for Black Male Achievement. If individuals want to learn about it, you go to blackmaleachievement.org. As our CEO, Sean Dove, likes to say, we're in the business of building beloved communities for Black men and boys, but also for the Black community as a whole. And what we've built with Blackout is a beloved community. We're committed to improving the life outcomes and really trying to end the atrocities that we see happening in human rights violations. And so before I turn it over, I want to first thank the National Black Programming Consortium for hosting this today. We appreciate them. This has been amazing. As Van said, we had 10 people and we've invited some more people. So for an hour of today, we were able to have a conversation to really have long-term impact and really think through what does Justice for Flint mean. And I hope everyone who's joined us today understands that. But I want to turn it to both Flint community members who are sitting here with us to talk about what they hope to be the outcome of Justice for Flint.
Well, first of all, I would like to say thank you.
That's good, Coach.
Okay, I appreciate everything, the love. I think the community definitely feels the love. And I think without you guys, we would literally drown. The support that has been given to the community is just extraordinarily just wonderful. I can't express exactly how I feel, but I do know the community as a whole do appreciate the things that everyone has said and done for us. But what I like to see, because Flint community and the urban areas around the Flint community has been choking. They have been choking the life out of our city economically and as far as in education. Our schools are dwindling. We have very little economic resources here in the community. And I would love to see more economic development and things as far as the pipes and everything, bring our people in and train the people of Flint to do it. The capacity, we have great capacity here, and it can be done. But what I've noticed that what's been going on lately is that they've been bringing they've been outsourcing a lot of things, and the community has not had a say in it. So I would like to see the community have a larger voice, which you guys have been definitely doing for us, and we do appreciate it. But economically, we do need to develop our urban area and empower the people that are in the city. And to, again, Ryan mentioned the grocery stores. The city does not have fresh fruit. You know, the nurse was basically saying that they need fresh fruit, fresh foods, whole foods, and we don't have that now that the major stores are gone. They're on the outskirts of the city now, and so they're going to these mom and pop stores, and these stores do not they have a lot of junk food, a lot of sugar, and that's what a lot of the parents they're forced to get because they really don't have transportation. So again, what next for me is to begin to develop and use the community, the citizens of the community, because we have the capacity. So again, that's my what next, education wise.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, yes. My mom touched on a lot. So I'm just going to say thank you for everyone in Flint for bringing Justice for Flint, this program, this concert to Flint for the Flint people, because this has been going on for a while. And so to know that people are behind us and standing behind people with resources, people with, who have influence in, the nation as a whole. And so just to put this on so people can, have relief and just relax for a while and not have to worry about that, and know that people are standing behind us in this community is great, and it's such a blessing, and just thank you all for it. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. So I think we're going to end there. Again, revolt.tv or hashtag Justice for Flint. I don't think there's any other words we have to say after those comments. So thank everybody for joining, all of our speakers today, our panelists, Carmen, those who are still on, Dr. Boyd, NBPC, and Vin. Thank you so much for staying on with us to the end. We appreciate you. We love you. And I guess we'll see some of you on the ground tomorrow. So Justice for Flint, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.